you for coming. This is a great program. I'm so happy this exists. Donna and the ASRC, I'm sure you're in really good hands. This is wonderful to see so many young people so passionate about refugee rights. I run this cafe Long Street in partnership with my husband Francois. It is a social enterprise cafe, and we exist in order to provide 3 to 6 month paid training employment opportunities to young asylum seekers and refugees. We opened 6 months ago now, and we have worked with 4 young people. We just take 2 people at a time, and everyone aside from 1 person has been an asylum seeker, a young person seeking asylum. And I think it's important for us, I know people use the terms interchangeably, but for us to actually probably note that difference, all but 1 being an asylum seeker. So with even I suppose less employment prospects than someone who's had their refugee status determined. So due to the visa, being on bridging visas and whatnot. So presently we employ Abdi, who's just up the back there. Hi, Abdi. And Amina, and they're doing a really wonderful job. We provide all the training here at Long Street, and we say 3 to 6 months. I suppose first and most importantly, we want to create a space where young people seeking asylum feel welcome and feel well supported, and like they're able to actually acquire the skills and build the all-important self-confidence that's needed. We don't really have too much of a criteria in terms of who we look for. We have a preference for people who are under 30 due to the nature of the work. And we just ask they have conversational English language skills and that they like to drink coffee, really. Yeah, we had someone who didn't want to drink coffee. It was really, really hard training her, and it didn't really work out. So we now have that as a kind of one of the first questions. We're like, do you like coffee? So yeah, that's basically what we do. We work with them for 3 to 6 months. We cover all hospitality training here. But we have an emphasis on barista skills training. As most of you probably know, Melbourne kind of has this bit of a coffee culture thing going on, and good baristas are in high demand, and that's where we want to focus our energy on that. And it's also a higher rate of pay usually than probably most of you know if you work in hospitality than just say working on the floor. So, and we're really passionate about coffee, and we want to kind of pass that passion on. And speaking of passion, it's kind of this business operates just like any conventional business aside from our social mission, but we are first and foremost refugee and asylum seeker rights advocates. Sometimes people are just like, why do you do this? Are you just like a business owner that just like feels bad for people or something? But it's not that at all. We are first and foremost advocates, and we are passionate about seeing refugees and asylum seekers fulfill their potential in Australia, and we just think that employment, that vital first step to rebuilding their lives here, is a really good way to start. So I would probably just say lastly that we don't receive any funding for any of the training that we do. We have no ongoing funding. And so if you are considering where to maybe come and drink coffee and have lunch or breakfast one day, I would suggest coming here, because this cafe is wholly dependent upon people coming and supporting us. And so far we've been very fortunate, and we've had a huge amount of community support, and I hope that continues. That's been the really easy part. We only take on 2 people at a time. I probably receive upwards of 50 resumes a week. So we have asked in the past Brotherhood of St. Lawrence and the ASRC to send us through resumes based on our quite loose criteria, and that's how we've sourced staff previously. I think that's kind of been important for us because I suppose from a legal perspective, I mean, it's just myself and my husband running it, and I don't really have time to check they have work rights and that they are, maybe receiving English language tuition if they need more help, or that they have counselling. So it's very, very limited to what we can do. So far partnering with those organisations has been quite effective, but at some point I'd like to be able to take people off the street, so to speak, just considering how many people walk in, and that's not to say they're not affiliated with an organisation, maybe like the Red Cross or something, that is also, you know, providing them with that support that they need. But yeah, we at some point would like to be able to take people without having to go through those avenues, but at the moment we're limited to that. But the need is huge. That's something that we really want to work on for the future. We can only take on the 2 people, and it's really overwhelming how many people need work. We often have people say they'll come and work for free, which we don't do. It's paid, but they're just that desperate to kind of put down a work experience and a reference, that all-important Australian work reference, because not many people give you a shot if you haven't had any work experience in the country. They want to be able to at least phone up someone else and say, hey, how did this person go with you? So, yeah. Well, both Francois and I travelled a significant amount after we finished school, and then we went to university at a later stage, like when we weren't like old, but we were like 22 or something. So, and then we continued to work in hospitality. So we kind of came to realise that we had tons of experience managing cafes, and had seen firsthand, I suppose, the level of prejudice that people, I would think it's safe to say, from refugee backgrounds would experience when looking for work. So it kind of just made, you know, sense in a really beautiful way for us to combine those 2 things. But it's hard because I am running a business as well. Like, you have this social mission, and this is what I'm passionate about, but a huge amount of time is spent just doing the normal boring things that running a business requires in order to keep the doors open and keep these guys employed. Yes, I know that Scarf, who I'm sure Donna also knows, they have a wonderful model. I know Hannah, who runs that in pod with some other wonderful women, has refined that recently, but they work with asylum seekers and refugees who are recommended to them, I think, via a caseworker at the Red Cross, and they provide, I think it is 4 to 6 weeks of hospitality training. They do a lot of bar and more dinner service, and they take over on a Tuesday night, I think, kind of pub restaurants that would ordinarily be very quiet, and they pack it out. And it's brilliant. I highly recommend going to one of their dinners. It's really, really good. Well, look, we are open to free money. Yeah. It's not. It's not that. So it isn't set up as a not-for-profit. There's a long story behind that. We actually did the short stories. We had it registered as a not-for-profit for 12 months. Didn't work out. So we were like, whatever. We'll just basically borrow, beg, and not steal. I can't think of how to finish that, but we will get some money together and just register it as a plain old normal business. And we have had, I must say, like we crowdfunded nearly 18 something, and I have had banks, like I enter competitions that say like banks run, like we've had funding from NAB and from AMP, because they love that we're using a business to solve a social problem. Like, that is a really easy thing for us to explain to them, and they love it. And so, but I initially, sorry, just to backtrack, but it started with, I was entered a competition with the Woman's Weekly magazine. I'm not sure we have too many readers here, but they were really wonderful in being the first people to back us when we had like nothing. We had absolutely nothing. I was like, I want to open a cafe and I want to employ asylum seekers. And they're like, okay, Jane, tell us about your dream. And then I was literally just talking, and that doesn't happen, because whenever you want money, people want to see like this much paperwork, and they want to see your trading history, and they want to see what you've done. And I'd volunteered for a long time, but I hadn't really done anything. Well, Long Street didn't exist. I hadn't done anything, on my own, so to speak. So Women's Weekly backed us. They gave us $10,000. And from that, I could kind of, we did a little pop-up, and I sought investment from having done the pop-up. And it was literally as simple as having visuals to take into, like when I'd go and pitch, to people up in Sydney. I did like quite a lot of that, and I'd be able to take photos and say, look, here's a young guy, he's an asylum seeker from Tibet, this is his first day of work in the country, let me do this on a permanent basis, it will work. So there was a lot of that, but yeah, maybe some funding in the future. We'll see how we go. I keep entering the competitions, a lot of women in business and stuff like that. So yeah, a little over 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it was really hard. We signed a lease on this place. We found this place, and then we didn't have any money for it, and then we had to start paying rent. So we had to work multiple jobs whilst my husband, Francois, my brother, fitted it out. So that was really hard. But yeah, it took 3 years, and it was a lot of like 99% rejection, and then you get like 1% of people you talk to that isn't your family and friends who think it's wonderful because you're doing it, you know. 1% of people would say, oh, that sounds all right, that sounds okay. And then you just kind of like grab onto that person and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take you with me. Like it's really full on. We face so much rejection from, and it's not always obvious why. You don't know if it's because you're young. Maybe sometimes I was like, they just don't like that we're young and we're passionate, and you know, maybe they're older and unhappy or something. You know, like you just don't really know. Or often they'll never say it, but it's because they don't really like people coming here seeking asylum, and they don't like the idea of using business to, you know, assist them in finding employment. But they'll never directly say it. But yeah, it was 3 years of a lot of rejection and kind of like, okay, how much longer are we going to push this for? Which is really hard when you get to that point when you think you maybe should have quit 12 months ago, but you're so far in that you have to kind of keep going. So yes.